Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, and it's that time of year once again to take a look at what we might be getting at the end of the year in terms of new iPhones. So once again, Sonny Dixon has hooked me up with some dummy units that sort of preview the design of the new iPhones that we're getting. Typically these mock-ups are fairly accurate, but some of the details like the colors may vary. And just like last year, it looks like we're getting 3 new iPhones, but this time they all have the same design, featuring that notch design with the edge-to-edge display. So instead of Touch ID, we now have Face ID on all the new iPhones. So returning this year is a 5.8-inch iPhone X, but updated with new specs. It's joined by a much larger companion, the 6.5-inch iPhone X Plus, which will obviously be the high-end iPhone of the year. And then we have something that slots in the middle, a 6.1-inch iPhone, which we'll talk about a bit later. So the iPhone X and iPhone X Plus, at least that's what I'm calling it until we get the official names, but they're very familiar designs. The 5.8-inch is carried over for the most part, so there's no design differences between this and the new model, but of course we can expect spec bumps. The 6.5-inch is basically a scaled-up version of that phone, so the design is pretty familiar. It's all stainless steel. We have an OLED display wrapped around in glass on the back and front, and all the buttons and ports and SIM card, speaker grills, the lightning port, all of it is in the same location. Now there might be one slight tweak here, and that's a slightly thinner bezel. Now the notches are the same size on all of the phones, and of course with the larger Plus design there's quite a bit more room on either side of the notch, so it looks much smaller and more proportional on the larger phones. Just like other Plus models, if you take a look at the bottom edge, you can see that we have more speaker outlets for the iPhone X Plus, so we should get more powerful speakers with this larger body. We also have a Lightning connector, still no USB-C here, but it looks like we're going to get a new 18-watt USB-C charger included with new iPhones. So that means we can finally take advantage of rapid charging out of the box instead of having to buy a MacBook charger. This will be especially important with the larger iPhone X Plus. That 6.5-inch phone is definitely going to come with a bigger battery. In terms of spec improvements, we should get a new A12 CPU, which is a 7nm chip, replacing the 10nm A11 from the last iPhone X. We can also expect up to 4 gigs of RAM, at least on the iPhone X Plus, which is expected to pick up some new software features that take advantage of its larger display, very similar to the iPhone 8 Plus. So we should get apps with a landscape orientation. So whatever they call the iPhone X and X Plus, both of them will have OLED displays, but the resolution of the iPhone X Plus is expected to be about 2688 by 1242. So that roughly gives us a pixel density of 458. Now it looks like both the iPhone X and X Plus will still be stainless steel, so we'll have that polished stainless steel frame, likely available in silver and space gray, but we might get another color option such as gold. If you remember, when the iPhone X launched, we were expecting a gold version which didn't materialize, so that might finally show up for 2018. Now maybe the most interesting new phone for 2018 isn't the most expensive. It's the 6.1-inch, which slots right between the iPhone X and X Plus. Right now many people are calling this the iPhone 9, which makes some sense. It kind of looks like a successor to the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. The screen is actually larger overall than the iPhone 8 Plus, but the footprint is still smaller. This phone is expected to be cheaper for a number of reasons. The obvious one in this case is you can see that instead of a dual camera setup, we have a single camera setup. But what's not obvious with this dummy is that it's also made of aluminum instead of stainless steel, which should give it more color flexibility so you can get more vibrant colors like you can with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. But we still have that glass back design with wireless charging, and we also get Face ID instead of Touch ID like the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus. But the big differentiator with the 6.1-inch is the display technology. So instead of the stunning OLED display, this will be using an LCD or IPS display. So that's basically the same display technology from the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus. Now I'm not sure what the resolution is going to be on this phone, but I know Apple's going to try to achieve a pixel density of 326 or greater. In terms of specs, if this follows the pattern of the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and the iPhone X of last year, it's very possible that all of these phones will still get the same A12 CPU. But it wouldn't be unheard of if the 6.1-inch keeps the cost down by going with the A11. Now for the most part, the 6.1-inch is very similar in design to the iPhone X and X Plus, but again, this will be anodized aluminum, not stainless steel. But one thing that stands out right away is that the design is quite a bit thicker than the iPhone 10 and 10 Plus. It's also thicker than the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus. If you compare them side by side, it's quite noticeable. This could be for a few reasons. This phone is quite large, so if it's aluminum, they need a fairly large frame to make sure it's strong enough to avoid bending. Also needs a fairly large battery for this large display. There's one other difference here, and that's the location of the SIM tray. Now, this might have something to do with the fact that this will likely get a dual SIM in other markets. So it's positioned farther down than it is on the iPhone 10 and 10 Plus. So that might give you some idea of how different the phone might be internally. Also worth pointing out is that the bezel on the 6.1-inch LCD phone is slightly thicker than it is on the OLED phones. That's probably related to the limitations of an LCD display, which has a backlight, and to mitigate light leaking, you want a nice black bezel that hides the edges of the LCD screen. But if you compare the iPhone 8 to the 6.1-inch, you can see that the camera module is quite a bit bigger. Now, this could mean that there wasn't a lot of room for the camera module on this sort of edgeless screen design, so the camera module on the back is just larger to make room for all the hardware that the camera needs that would otherwise have more room thanks to the larger bezels on the older design. But it could also mean we have some new camera technology in here that needs that wider aperture. Now, if you want to get an idea of how big the iPhone 10 Plus will be, just pick up an iPhone 8 Plus. It's identical in terms of its dimension. The only difference is the entire front of the phone is a display, with the exception of a notch which looks especially small on a phone of this size. So after using the 5.8-inch iPhone 10, the 6.5-inch feels gigantic. But again, it's basically the same size as the iPhone 8 Plus, which I had used for years before. And I've always felt that the iPhone 10 was way too small, so I'm glad to see we finally got the larger phone, which I think should have arrived last year. But what's going to be interesting to see is how they price the 6.1-inch and how it relates to the OLED phones. So is the 6.1-inch going to be cheaper than the 5.8-inch? If it is, how many people are going to choose the 5.8-inch when they can get a larger 6.1-inch? So really it's going to come down to some of the details we don't really have yet. Alrighty guys, so which phone are you most looking forward to? Let me know in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick preview of some of the new iPhones that are coming up next month. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know with a like, and I'll see you again in my next video.